So you can already see the contents have been specified already in the course outline provided to you earlier, right? That we are expecting to cover these contents in the midterm too, but we
Yes, sir.
have skipped this content, income from house property. We have skipped this topic.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so which topics we have covered? The remaining topics we have covered: set of carry forward of loss, then TDS, then in assessment of individuals, what we have discussed the I mean, in the income tax return, how can we aggregate the different sources of income? I mean, if you have income from salary, if you have income from interest on securities, and if the two problems are combined, how it will look like, that will be covered in one of individuals. I mean, we have covered in midterm one the individual problem. I mean, totally from income from salary or total from income from interest on securities. But when it is the assessment of individuals, all headings are covered in aggregate. But as we already only have covered these two headings of income, one is from salary and another one is from interest on securities. That's why in this chapter we are planning to cover only these two headings. So if you see in some problems that uh, some contents are like income from profession, that will be skipped. But remember, when we have skipped the income from house property, but replacing this content, we covered income from business and profession. Can you recall? Can you recall that we have covered income from business and profession?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So income from business and profession, we looked at the problems only which cover the income from business, not income from the profession, right? So in midterm 2, we are covering income from business, set of and carry forward of loss, deduction of tax at source or TDS, then assessment of individuals. In assessment of individuals, you are expected to see the problems which cover the income from salary, income from interest on securities, and income from business, these three parts. So in one problem, say, for example, if there is income from house property, you will skip that part, that content. And if in your question, if you see that income from house property is given, that will not be given in a way where you will need to know how to assess the income from house property. Rather, net income, net taxable income from house property will be given to you. So there is no requirement to calculate or to go for calculating the exemption, then assessment these things separately in detail. Rather, you just have to add the income from house property and get the total income by income from salary, income from business, income from interest on securities, and ready-made you have income from house property. You just sum up all this income. Am I clear to you what I have mentioned?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then assessment of companies. So for the assessment of companies, the rules are mostly covered in the income from business. So we have seen some additional rules for assessment of companies. So for midterm 2, we are expecting to cover these contents. So to some people of among us may feel that the contents are more than adequate or more than expected. But the motivation is that if you can review these contents for midterm 2, your revision will be done also for your final exam. So that if I skip any content for midterm 2, but if it is covered in final, you will miss the revision, and for final exam preparation you will have to go through the contents, previous contents again. So it is the purpose for the covering these contents in midterm 2. So what we are doing, I am repeating again, we are just replacing this income from house property by income from business. Okay, so in midterm 2, question structure will be look like very similar to midterm 1. You will have a quantitative problem, and you will have a conceptual question, and from the conceptual question provided in midterm 1, you have understood that the question is not readily available in the text. Rather, you have to think of yourself and you have to write what you are thinking of about that issue. So the qualitative contents is expected to look like that. Maybe so, but for quantitative problems, you might have to remember some rules, some guidelines, for which you may have to memorize something. So that will be for the purpose of quantitative problem. Okay. So there is one chapter which is very small chapter. I mean, not much contents there. That chapter is known as assessment. Before the chapter of assessment of individual, assessment of companies, you will see that there is a chapter, assessment chapter. I request you to read the chapter, read out that chapter, and highlight some points where you have the chapter. If I try to refer the chapter from the text, that chapter is only name assessment. In the ICB text, the chapter is in the page number 261. So which is basically covers the way how assessment can be classified, what types of assessment can be done. You are familiar with the concept of assessment. So what kind of assessment can be done, and which places, in which areas, how assessment can be done. So for example, if I like to give you a very slight example, sometimes tax people go to the shopping center and visit the shops without any prior notice and try to find out their books of accounts and investigate their accounts. And if they find that they have not submitted their return properly, or they have not paid the tax properly, instantly they make some spot assessment, which is known as a spot assessment. So on the basis of a spot assessment, the shop owners are required to pay the taxes or submit the return to the tax officials. So this is one kind of assessment which is not a regular type of assessment. So regular type of assessment is an example where we annually submit our income tax return. That is kind of regular type of assessment. And company periodically submits their VAT return, tax return. These are kind of regular type of assessment. So you will see this different kind of assessment in that chapter. Just read out that chapter, and if you find something which you feel that you require some explanation or you want to know more about it, what may it look like, we'll try to discuss about that in the next class. Okay, have you got the chapter which I am referring right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that chapter is chapter 17 in the ICB text. The title of the chapter is assessment. So we are right now covering the value added tax. So we will have remaining the customs duty. I hope that there will be a very introductory discussion on the customs duty, because we may not get time to have the to cover the customs duty fully. So we'll have a very basic idea about the customs duty. So before beginning today's class on the VAT, value added tax, which we started in previous class, you probably have heard about a session on stock market facts and figures, which is expected to uh, occur in next Saturday. Have you heard about it?
Yes, sir.
That there
Yes,
will be a
sir.
session.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So the session time, have you got the time? In
3
the
to
next
5 p.m.
3 to 5 p.m. So that session will conflict with our class session. So I'm expecting, or I'm declaring that the next class will be postponed for that session, and we will meet after today's class. We'll meet in our class in the week, which week, what should I, 20th, sorry, not 20, yeah, 20th March. So after today's class, we'll meet again in which class? 20th March. On 13th March, we will be attending in the session in which we'll listen some facts and figures, some common questions, and some interesting facts regarding our stock market from our Sojip Hussain sir. So I hope that you will be present there on the next session. Okay. So what about our progress with respect to the term paper part 2?
So it's continuing.
Okay. So far we have got 38 participants, including me. So
Sir, have you uploaded the recording of lecture number 15 and 16?
lecture number 15 and 16, I mean for previous class.
Yes, sir.
Did you check the YouTube? The channel?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We checked, but I couldn't find.
You
But
didn't
the
find.
others, I don't know.
Okay. We probably didn't upload the class, the first class on VAT. We covered up to assessment of companies. You see that lecture number 15 has been uploaded. You see the lecture number 15?
Yes, sir. The lecture number 15.
Okay,
I can
lecture
see.
number 16 has not been uploaded. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So
Thank you, sir.
we are expecting to upload it by this week with the lecture number 17 of today. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So have you seen in the newspaper that Kausmia has been awarded for the
Yes, sir.
top
Today
tax
I have
authority?
seen.
Okay. So have you explored the profile of Kausmia?
Sir, we know he is the owner of Hakimpuri Jorda company.
Okay. That was his beginning. But in addition to that, he has, so far I have seen that he has 19 other types of business other than this business of tobacco. Okay. So that is very encouraging for all of us. As an individual, he pays the highest amount of taxes. And sometimes it is observed that though by the amount of tax, what is his his eligible amount to pay is less than the amount what he actually pays. So what does it mean? He actually pays more than the tax than the amount what he is supposed to pay. So do you know the answer to this question? Why he pays more taxes than the tax he is supposed to pay? Do you know? Have you got the
No, sir.
question? He pays more taxes than the amount of taxes he is supposed to pay in some years.
Because of advance tax payment.
Because of
Advance tax payment.
in a specific fiscal year, he pays taxes more than the taxes he is supposed to pay. So the reason is that he wants to be the top, he wants to be in the top position in the taxpayers list. Have you got the reason?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
He wants to be in the top taxpayer list. So in some years, it has been found that he wants to pay more taxes, or he actually pays more taxes than the amount what he is supposed to pay. Okay. So in previous class, we finished our discussion by discussing on the how to take the VAT registration, what are the procedures, what documents need to be submitted. And we also have discussed the issues where discuss the reasons where the business identification number will be required. So in today's session, let me begin the recording first. And for last couple of days, my touchpad pen, the eraser is not working. So I'm not getting the solution by any mean. So in turnover tax, which is related to value-added tax, and some companies, some businesses are responsible for paying turnover taxes. Can you recall from the chapter in which we have discussed that some companies are required to pay taxes on their turnover? Kind of the companies which are tobacco manufacturing company, the companies which are wireless telecommunication service providers, these companies are required to pay taxes based on their turnover. Can you recall?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So it is a kind of alternative to the value-added tax. So if a company pays value-added tax, or if a company has been made responsible by the NBR that it should pay value-added tax, you should not expect that at the same time the company also pays turnover tax. So usually the turnover tax is an alternative to value-added tax, but sometimes we see that in some cases it does not apply. Some companies have to pay VAT in some areas. I mean, with respect to some transactions, but in addition to that, they are also responsible for paying turnover tax. So turnover tax is also covered in the act which we are following for the Value Added Tax and Supplementary Duty Act 2012. So in that act, it has been mentioned that if the company has the turnover which exceeds a threshold level, in that case, that company is responsible for paying turnover tax, which is usually based on the sales figure of their taxable products or services. So usually when there is a sales, we consider that that company has products to sell at, and when we see the revenue, we expect that that company render services instead of selling the product. So whatever the case it is mentioned in the section 2 of 48. Fortunately, my eraser is working. That is good. So the thing is that what is the threshold level of paying turnover tax? So can you recall in previous class we mentioned in which case the company has to take the VAT registration? Can we recall the main condition which is based on their revenue? We mentioned about a figure in previous class with respect to turnover. Can you recall we mentioned a figure and we have mentioned that if the company's turnover or the business turnover exceeds that threshold, that company has to take the VAT registration. I showed a figure from the act. Are you watching my screen?
No, sir.
No. Okay. There was a limit for a threshold limit we covered in, we saw here. You see?
Yes, sir. 24 lakh.
Okay. Can you recall right now?
Yes, sir. স্যার একটা এক্সাম্পলও এরকম দিয়েছিলেন মনে হয় 30.5 মিলিয়ন ক্রস করেছিল যার কারণে তাকে এরকম রেজিস্ট্রেশন দিতে হয়েছিল।
Yeah. So for turnover tax, in case of turnover tax, the threshold is if the yearly turnover of a company exceeds taka 50 lakhs but not more than taka 3 crore. In case of turnover tax, if the company's annual turnover exceeds
50 lakh.
taka 50 lakh, exceeds 50 lakh, but okay, annual turnover is greater than 50 lakh. but less than
3 crore.
3 crore. So annual turnover is within this level. Okay, greater than 50 lakhs, less than 3 crore. That company is, that individual is supposed to pay turnover tax. That company is supposed to pay turnover tax. But in previous class, when we saw this, the registration limit or registration threshold, probably that this number should not be the threshold limit for VAT. This number, I see two different numbers in two different documents. So that's why I got confused. You see here in definition, threshold, because it has been subsequently changed. So which one is the updated? That is the issue. Here it should be. You see registration threshold means the limits of taka 80 lakh as net turnover of an economic activity of a person in 12-month period. So in this document, where the date has been mentioned 26 December, it is mentioned 80 lakhs as net turnover. But in this document, it is mentioned taka 24 lakhs. So I can't take this figure right now. So which figure we can follow from the text, that if the company has annual turnover within this greater than 50 lakhs, it would be appropriate to write in this way. Annual turnover is greater than 50 lakhs, but less than 3 crore. In that case, that company is supposed to pay the turnover tax. And if for the VAT registration, the number has to be confirmed again. And this number is the annual turnover. Right now, we are confirming the number for what? For the requirement of paying turnover tax when the person or the business is liable to pay the turnover tax. But the thing is that in addition to the responsibility for paying the turnover tax, the company or the individual will be exempt from paying the value-added tax. So that individual will not have to pay the value-added tax. But the thing is that how can we assess this annual turnover? So it is mentioned that every quarter, so usually quarter ends in this kind of date. Say right now we are in March. So in terms of our fiscal year, it is our third quarter or first quarter in terms of our fiscal year. In terms of our fiscal year,
Is it third quarter?
right, it is third quarter because our fiscal year starts from 1st July.
1st July.
And
Yes, sir.
assessment here also starts from 1st July. Okay. So it has been mentioned that in every quarter, it will be assessed. What will be assessed? It will be assessed that what is the turnover in previous 12 months. For example, right now we are in 31st March, for example. So on this date, we have to assess. So what we will assess? We will assess that in the previous 12 months, which ends on the 31st March, what is my turnover? So if I find my turnover, for example, is 1 crore, in that case, I am supposed to pay the turnover tax. I have to take the registration for paying the turnover tax. And in addition to that, I have been provided a specific date by which I have to apply for the registration, which is mentioned here as enlistment. Can you recall that for understanding, I am using the registration word, but in terms of the act, the wording is enlistment, probably. Though it is registration threshold, so we are understanding the registration as enlistment, but we have to apply for it. So the question is, we will apply on this date, or we will apply after 2 months, or we will apply within very few days. Okay. So the answer is that we have to apply within 30 days of the ending of the quarter. So for example, right now we are in the 30th September and we have assessed that our turnover is 1 crore. By which date we have to apply for enlistment for paying turnover tax?
So is it 30 October?
Yeah, it is on the 30th October.
October.
So if you go for applying for enlistment for paying turnover tax, we do not need to pay any kind of fees for the enlistment. So for example, if it has been found that you are right now enlisted for paying turnover tax, annual turnover. Okay, you are right now enlisted for what? But if it is found that your turnover has exceeded 3 crore by this time, not by this time, I mean you are continuing to of paying turnover tax, but after some time you have observed that your turnover has exceeded how much value? 3 crore. So how can you assess this 3 crore? In the same way, what we learned in the VAT application for VAT or registration for VAT, we have to look for previous 12 months turnover. So in the previous 12 months turnover, if we see that our turnover has exceeded 3 crore, if we consider the turnover for previous 12 months, in that case, I have to apply for VAT registration. I have to apply for VAT registration. So which figures we have got? If my turnover is within here, I will continue to pay turnover tax and I will have to take the enlistment. I have to get enlisted for paying turnover tax. And at the same context, what we have seen for annual or last 12 months, And based on the quarterly assessment, if we see our turnover has exceeded 3 crore value, in that case, we have to apply for VAT registration. Okay. So, for example, for some cases, you have either taken turnover tax, or for some, because your turnover has exceeded VAT registration, at a single time, you are continuing with a single registration. So usually, what we mentioned in initial discussion, that usually an individual person or an individual business do not pay both taxes. So what we have to do, either we are paying turnover tax or we are paying value added tax. We have to take the certificate. So who will provide the certificate? The Commissioner of Taxes. For VAT Commissionerate, for VAT, there is a separate commission office. So Commissioner of VAT Commissionerate will provide the certificate for this. And the thing is that what is our responsibility for having, after having this certificate? Have you ever seen that you have visited for example, a pastry shop? Say that shop is Mr. Baker. Have you seen that they hang a certificate on their wall?
Yes, sir.
Where it is mentioned that it is reflecting that it is their VAT certificate. Have you seen this kind of certificate?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So this certificate can also be available for paying turnover tax. So it is your responsibility to display this certificate in a place where it is visible clearly. Because the first reason is that tax officials can visit your place any point of time, and they can confirm that you have the proper certificate and you are enlisted payer of the turnover tax or value added tax, whatever case it is. And at the same time, it is also giving a kind of indication or verification to the customers that if that shopkeeper collects VAT from you, he is an enlisted VAT payer and he will properly pay the VAT. He will properly pay the VAT or transfer the VAT amount to the NBR. Okay. So commonly what is found that the entities collects VAT properly from the customer, but they pay a portion of the VAT to the government, or sorry, to the NBR. So though they collect the VAT properly from the customers, but they do not pay the legitimate amount of VAT what they should pay after netting out the input VAT. Can you recall that we have talked about input VAT, output VAT?
Yes, sir.
In previous
Yes, sir.
class? Okay. The net amount should be paid, right? By each party.
Yes, sir.
After netting out the input VAT, what he paid. Okay. So it is observed that they do not clear the net amount of VAT what they should pay to the NVR properly. So we should not do for that kind of practice. So for example, for some reason, you are no longer continuing your activity. For example, you are you have a startup business and your turnover exceeds 3 crore, for example. but for some reason you want to close your business, you do not want to continue that activity. In that case, you have to, or you will be wanting to cancel your registration. So in that case, there is a procedure. You have to provide the document, and you have to apply through NVR site. And if you go to the NVR site and you go to the where should I see online VAT registration, and for registration there is a procedure for taking VAT registration, and at the same time there is a way that we can cancel the VAT registration. So there are procedures. I'm not very familiar how to cancel the registration, but I'm familiar how to take the registration. So there are action rules available and there are proper forms. So I can show you some forms. So one form which is used for cancellation, that is known as Mushok 2.1. Mushok 2.1. You see this 2.1 value added tax 2.1. So you are familiar with Mushok Mullo Songjojon Kor?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so these are the some forms you have to submit if someone wants to cancel the registration. In addition to that, he also so there is another form which is mentioned, that 2.4. Is there any form 2.4? I see no form for 2.4. So there are other relevant forms. So these are not relevant for us. Okay. So the thing is that one reason can be that we are not continuing the economic activity for which we took the VAT registration. So for example, when we are taking the VAT registration, we used to do business of, for example, supplying for example, clothes. But for some reason, I have changed my activity. In that case, if it is mentioned that this activity will be covered in the same activity, in that case, no changes in registration is required. But for example, if your business has been significantly changed, in that case, we may have to cancel our existing registration. We may have to take the new registration. And can you recall there was a threshold limit for turnover, which ranges between the 50 lakhs to 3 crore. For example, due to COVID-19, you are now experiencing downfall in your turnover. So for last 2 consecutive years, for example, 2019 and 2020, threshold level, it is found that the turnover level has gone down below this level for 2 consecutive years. How many years? 2 consecutive years. 1 year is not sufficient. 2 consecutive years. In that case, one can apply for cancellation of the registration of VAT. Okay. So the procedure, what I just have mentioned is for the cancellation of VAT registration. So you see what figure I mentioned for VAT. If the amount exceeds 3 crore, in that case, the registration is VAT. The registration is not for turnover tax. So if for some reason my turnover goes to 2 crore, 2.5 crore, in that case, should I continue VAT registration or I should switch back to turnover tax registration? If my turnover goes down to 2 crore, 2.5 crore from a level which is above 3 crore, should I continue the VAT registration?
No, sir.
I will go for cancelling the VAT registration, and I am now eligible for paying only turnover tax. In that case, I will go for paying turnover tax. Okay. So when there has been any changes of the information what you submitted when you take the VAT registration, there are some information you have provided when taking the registration. You see the form is same. You see the form is same. Okay. So you see you have provided some information here, your business type, and what are the general information, your trade license number. Is it available from the NVR? This number? This number is available from NVR?
I think it's available there.
Available from the municipality, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. City Corporation থেকে নিতে হয়।
Okay, so it is available from the municipal. So you see there have been a good number of information you provided, right? Okay, so if there has been changes, you see, for example, major area of economic activity. So for example, my business is to sell software locally. In that case, I'm doing manufacturing, services, import, export, or other. My economic activity? Services, okay. And you see areas of manufacturing, and which one I should pick for software? This is for area of manufacturing. For area for, so if my product is software and it may not fit in the manufacturing category, it may fit to the area of service category. Can you see any kind of field which fits with our service? You see?
Yes, sir. Software and ITS.
Okay. So the people who want to do business and who want to take the challenge of being an entrepreneur, you have to explore it in much detail than the detail in which I am right now showing you. Okay, you have to visit these things by yourselves and know in detail. So it is kind of very preliminary learning for beginning a business. Okay, so everything will not be taught in the class. The way may be shown to you. So it is our task to work in that way and know what are there in the road on the left, on the right, and know in detail. Okay, so it is not possible that what is needed that will be tested in the exam and you will prepare for it. This is not the way how one should achieve the knowledge about these things. Okay, so we have learned about the procedures where the VAT registration can be cancelled, VAT registration or turnover registration is required. But what I wanted to highlight that we have provided this kind of information. So the information can include the place of your economic activity, the type of economic activity, and if there can be a business which provide several type of economic activity, not only selling software. For example, that company also sell laptop. In that case, that company has product, also has service. So if there has been a significant changes in this information, what we have to do, we have to submit uh, the information in proper form, which are VAT 2.1, VAT 2.5, within 15 days of the changes in information. For example, I have decided to begin the business of selling laptop in addition to selling services. So in that case, the date when I have changed my mind, or I have changed the decision from that date, within 15 days, we have to let the envier known that this information has changed, and I have informed you by submitting this form 2.1, VAT 2.1, VAT 2.5. So sometimes online submission is adequate, but sometimes we have to submit the hard copy also. Okay, so there are good amount of contents which are for letting the users aware about the procedures, what need to be followed by the people, what need to be followed by the respective individuals. So it is not the way that only we are from the finance discipline. So in my employer company, we will be only doing the works related to, you may be assigned by your supervisor that we have not taken the VAT registration. Please take the VAT registration for my company. And he will not provide all the details to you. Rather, we have to learn by company and how we have to submit the VAT return. And we have learned the income tax return, and the people or the companies which have the business identification number and also the VAT registration number, they are required to submit the VAT return regularly, I mean periodically, which is applicable to them. Okay, so we have talked about the procedures for registration and cancellation. Now we want to talk about the some VAT rate. So in previous class, we have learned that the VAT rate in general, if nothing is mentioned, that rate is 15%. But in addition to 15%, we also have seen that there are 6 other VAT rate. And we also have been familiar with the zero rated goods and services. So I asked you one question, that what VAT rate is right now applicable in the shopping from Super Shop? Have we got the answer? Have we got the answer for the VAT rate which is applicable in case of purchase from Super Shop? Is it 5% or 15%?
So 5%.
স্যার তো ভ্যারি করে না
Huh?
স্যার এটা তো সুগার শপে তো এক এক প্রোডাক্টে এক এক রকম ভ্যাট রেট থাকে
No, the product may include VAT. For example, if you look at the toothpaste, or you look at some spices, or you look at some chips, you will see that the price is included with VAT and SD, supplementary duty. You see, there is a VAT. I'm not mentioning about this VAT. So this VAT varies from product to product, but there is a VAT uniformly applicable for the shopping from the super shop. So I asked for that VAT rate. Am I clear?
ইয়েস
Is my screen watchable to
Yes,
you?
sir. It's been
Yes,
definitely.
Okay. So that rate is 5%.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the thing is that how can we apply the VAT? There should be a value on which our VAT rate will be applicable, and the product or service on which our VAT will be applicable, that product should be something which is kind of taxable supply, or which is kind of taxable product, or taxable service, or taxable import. Can you recall we mentioned the taxable income when we are talking about the income tax? Now we are mentioning what? We are mentioning
taxable
now
products.
taxable import, taxable supply, these things. Okay, taxable supply includes the goods and service, taxable import also includes the goods and service. Okay, so the thing is that as per section 15 of the act, the VAT and SD Act 2012, 15% rate is applicable on taxable import or taxable supply, but in the VAT and SD Act, like the Income Tax Act, there are some schedules. Let me open the VAT Act again. There are some schedules in the VAT Act. So some products have been mentioned, or some goods and services, also some goods and services have been mentioned in the third schedule. There is also a schedule. So let me go directly to the schedule. Some products have been mentioned in the third schedule. Okay. I'm confident that this document is not the final document because it has been amended for several times. But I see the document is kind of incomplete. So there is second schedule, but where is third schedule? I do not see the third schedule. It is the VAT Act has not been uploaded also in the site BD laws. Are you aware of the site BD laws, where all the acts, rules, regulations are of Bangladesh are available there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I didn't find the VAT Act there. And I'm confident that this is not the final document after amendment. Let me look at here. Probably it will again, no. So there is another document I have opened from another source, vetbd.com. Let me explore that. The third schedule is here. This is second schedule. Second part is not also there. Okay, we'll look for it in future. But the thing is that the goods which have been mentioned in the third schedule, the reduced rate is applicable on those goods and services. Otherwise, the goods which have not been mentioned in the third schedule, which have not been mentioned in the third schedule, but if that goods is taxable supply or import, taxable import, and in that case, the VAT rate will be 15%. But if the goods are mentioned in the third schedule, in that case, the reduced rate will be applicable. So what are the which rates are reduced rate? Can 9% be a reduced rate?
Yes, sir.
Can you
It can
recall
be.
I mentioned some rates on those rate, the 9% was there. (9% was there. 9% was not there. So if I give you MCQ that you can reduce rate be 9%, the answer will be no. So these are the reduced rate. Why these are the reduced rate? Because all these rates are less than standard VAT rate 15%. Have you got the meaning of reduced rate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we have learned about the zero rated goods. So in zero rated goods, zero rate is here. Zero rate is not here. Zero rate means 0%. So zero rate is 0%. So how zero rated goods are different from exempt goods? So zero rate is different. Zero VAT rate is different from exempt goods in a way that if any input tax is paid on these goods which are in this list on which zero rate is applicable, what can we do? We can claim the refund. We can claim the refund. So what is refund meaning? Here we are meaning that if we collect the output VAT from our customer, we can net the input VAT. So what we should pay now? Output VAT we have collected minus input VAT we have paid. So this is applicable in which case? In case of zero rated goods, it is applicable. But if the goods are, or you are doing some transactions with some goods on which the VAT is exempted, the VAT is exempted. In that case, this kind of facility will not be available. Okay. So in case of turnover tax, for example, say a company is supposed to not a company, because the company is not supposed to have a turnover between 50 lakhs to 3 crore. Say a business is registered to pay the turnover tax only, but the company has purchased some goods by paying VAT, and the company is a trader company. So not company, the business is a trading business. What is the trading business? What is the purpose of trading business? Buying and selling, right? What
Yes,
is the
sir.
task of trader? Buying and selling.
Selling.
So if the good is VAT good on which 15% or 15% is applicable, in that case, what can be done? This trader can collect the input VAT, what he paid, from the output VAT, what he collects from his customer. But if the trader has the registration for turnover tax, not for the VAT. But the trader, when he was buying the good, for example, from the importer, say that trader had to pay VAT when he was purchasing it from the importer. But by registration, he has registration for what? He has registration for turnover tax. But when he was buying the goods from importer, what he had to pay? He had to pay VAT on the transaction. So what he pays? Input VAT for him, right? It is input VAT for him, but for importer it is output VAT. So we are right now in this case, trader. So this trader has no registration for VAT, right? This trader has no registration for VAT. So this trader cannot claim the refund or reimbursement, which is more appropriate, reimbursement for the input VAT, what he paid when he was making the transaction with the importer. But if the trader had the registration for VAT, in that case, what can he do? He can claim the reimbursement for the input VAT when he will be collecting the output VAT from the
retailers or consumers.
From his customer. Okay,
Yes, sir.
that is also applicable when the VAT rate is reduced state. When the VAT rate is reduced state, the claim of input VAT is restricted. The claim of input VAT is only applicable in which case? In case of when the VAT rate is 15%. Okay, so in the reduced rate, though the rate is reduced, there is a very high likelihood of double taxation. Double taxation, I mean, because on the same value addition, higher tax is collected. But when the standard VAT rate is 15% and all entities are able to net out their payment, they can avoid the double taxation. Okay, so there obviously there are pros and cons with 15% and the reduced rate, but when the rate is uniform, the procedures are very simple, or the procedures are more simple. Okay, so what we have learned so far, what is the standard rate of VAT? 15%.
15%. Yes, sir.
What are the reduced rate? The reduced rate can be
2%,
2.5,
2.4, 2.5%, 2.5%,
What we have learned,
4.5%.
2.5 is there,
So 2.4.
right?
So 2.4%.
2.4 is there, 2.5 is not there,
Yes,
right?
sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
4.5 is there, 5%,
Yes, sir.
7.5, 10%. These are some rates which are different from a standard rate, but these are reduced rate, right? Okay, so we will look for it that which one is applicable. So for example, in case of flat registration, there is a registration fee. In case of flat registration, there is a registration fee. Okay, so on that registration fee, the VAT rate is applicable. So that rate is not obviously 15%. That rate is very different based on the size of the flat. if it is within 1600 square feet, in that case it is 2%, and for the flat above the above 1601 square feet, in that case it is 4.5%. And for avoiding this VAT, the flat owners are not very interested to take the registration of their flat. So it is very common in our country that a significant percentage of the flat are not registered, because if you go for taking registration, you will have to pay the registration fee, and that is not an insignificant amount. And in addition to the registration fee, we will have to pay VAT. Okay. Can you recall that when your bank charges fee for debit card maintenance, for your debit card service, they also, in addition to the 500, they also charge VAT and SD on it? Have you seen on your bank statement? In addition to that, it is not the total charge. In addition to that, they also charge in the name of VAT. Have you seen? They are providing some service, but on that service, government has imposed VAT. And who is actually liable to pay this VAT? The bank customers are liable to pay this VAT. Have you ever experienced that in addition to 500, you are also incurred additional expenses in the name of VAT? Or no? Anyone? Do you have the bank account? You are there with me?
Yes, sir.
Do you have
Yes,
the
sir.
bank account? You have the bank account?
Sir, I don't have bank account.
Okay. Obviously, there are a number of people who have the bank account right now, who are doing class here with us, right? And you use the debit card, and you will see your statement. In addition to the charge which is charged by the bank also collects some VAT on the maintenance fee. So that is actually paid to the NVR. Okay. So the thing is that who are actually responsible for paying VAT? So we see the ultimate burden goes to the customer.
Consumer. Yes, sir.
Sorry, so the thing is that the government cannot reach to consumer, right? And we are directly make contact with consumer. If consumer buys some good and pays some VAT, consumer will pay VAT directly to the NVR.
No, sir. It is true. It is
does
true
not
that.
work in this way, right?
Yes, sir.
So the subsequent parties will collect the VAT from the consumer, and the burden shifts. So in relation to the taxable import, importer will be responsible, and in relation to the supplier of any goods in which VAT is applicable, the supplier is responsible. And in case of if, for example, say you want to buy a subscription in Netflix, is it free of cost?
No, sir.
You have to pay. How much for a month? Around? Is there anyone who has bought directly from the Netflix? Do we know what is Netflix?
Yes,
What
yes, sir.
What Netflix does? Okay. So Netflix, if if there is someone who does not know about Netflix is a kind of web series platform, right? So
Yes, sir.
it is a kind of platform where all kind of entertainments are available, and we have to purchase. And Netflix purchases this from the producer, and Netflix has also their own production, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the thing is that it is not free of cost. So what you will have to do, you will have to pay. For example, if you want to pay the Netflix, you will have to pay through bank. Through bank, you will have to pay, or you will have to if you want to pay to the Netflix, you will have to use the card, a debit card, which has the access for making the international transaction. So in that case, you are, for example, receiving that service. For example, Netflix is not here, but if it is found that you are purchasing this, you will see that VAT will be charged by you. VAT will be charged from you. So this VAT is paid by whom? The person who is receiving this supply of the service from Netflix,
Yes, sir.
or the Netflix is paying this.
No, no, sir. So the consumer, the Netflix
So
viewer.
these are some differences what you have need to learn in which stage, or in which case who is applicable. So recently, have you learned that Facebook, YouTube, these entities have been instructed by Bangladesh government to pay VAT, and they appointed their local agent. And when NBR officials visited uh, one local agent in Dhaka Farm Gate, they found that agent does not exist there. Have you seen this kind of news in newspaper? Have you seen this kind of news?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, so you'll have to be a very avid newspaper reader. Okay, so I'm not an avid newspaper reader, but newspaper will enlighten you with so many things. Okay, in addition to the entertainment, with respect to media news, or with respect to sports news, there are so many news which will help us to solidify our learning. Okay, so one thing is that, for example, if there are some business which are providing services in our country, for example, Bangladesh, but they do not have the residential status in Bangladesh. So in that case, they have the non-residential status, but they are selling economic activities or products at a price in our country to the persons living in our country. So in that case, if the VAT is imposed on them, they have to take a local registration. They have to take a local registration. So it has been made mandatory by the act. So the thing is that usually it happens in case of service provided through telecommunication network or information network. The services which are provided in this way, so it is very common in those cases. So other than this, for some services, which are usually provided from outside of our country, that entity has to appoint the local agent, so who actually deals with these issues. So one thing is that so some kind of services which are covered in this case are, for example, someone is selling website. So have you recently heard that one domain has been sold by Bangladeshi software developers, which is this like this? Have you heard about this news that someone from Bangladesh has sold this domain? Have you ever visited this site?
Dot. I might have seen the headline. I can remember
Okay.
right now.
Okay, so this domain has been sold from Bangladesh, but the local legal advisor of the Facebook.com has filed suit against that entity in our local court, and that entity which was selling this domain was penalized for that. And what why I have given this example, that some companies can sell the website so from outside, so they may, so in the transaction fee VAT may be imposed, and sometimes we purchase software. For example, some softwares are very expensive and very useful to us for finance people. Say, have you heard about Stata? Have you heard about these softwares?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so these softwares are not available in free of cost. So it is available in free of cost. R is available in free of cost. So if you go for purchasing this software from outside software seller or non-resident software seller, in that case, the non-resident software seller may require the local registration. So, for example, a good number of local companies now provide television commercials on YouTube.
Yes, sir.
So YouTube has to appoint a local agent who will be responsible for paying the VAT imposed on the revenue or transaction fees what they are collecting from the local customers. So NVR will make the local agent and also the non-resident company responsible for any kind of dues which is to be cleared by this company. Okay, so we have we have learned about it. And another thing what we like to highlight, that sometimes if anyone wants to import any service or any goods, importer himself will be responsible for paying VAT when he is clearing the good from the port, and for some conditions he can take the reverse, or he can claim the refund from the customer to whom he is selling or he is reselling that service. So if that imported goods or imported supply, the rate is either 0% or 15%. In that case, this condition, which is known as reverse charge, will be applicable. Sorry, will not be applicable. That he will not be able to do the reverse charge. But if the VAT rate is 7.5%, in that case, that VAT what he paid importer can be treated as reverse charge. So this charge is not very clear to me, but what I can do, I can show it to you from some concepts what have been shared by the NVR. Say there are some VAT FAQ, you see, FAQ. Have you seen from where I have visited here? This is the NVR site. And if you want to know something more clearly, or you want to see the definition of what has been actually mentioned, I have visited publication VAT here. And I have this one. So this is some FAQ under each type. It is available here. I find that or importer cannot okay. So you directly from VAT FAQ NVR. What NVR has defined all FAQ. Okay, here is VAT. So you see the link. I have to find out it very clearly from where it is available. Okay. So we are talking about what? Reverse charge. Reverse charge is applicable to service recipient at import level. Reverse charge is realizing tax from the service recipient in case of imported service. For example, company A will import software through internet as a service. At the time of payment through banking channel, company will pay VAT. And the same time, he can adjust it against output tax. Have you understood anything from here?
স্যার তার মানে কি
The
এরকম
charge.
দাঁড়াচ্ছে স্যার
Yeah,
তার মানে কি এরকম তো
continue.
আছে যে যে কোম্পানি আর কি যে সফটওয়্যারটা আর কি কিনতেছে আর কি মানে ই থেকে ফরেনার্স থেকে, সে হচ্ছে কি ওখানে যে ভ্যাটটা পে করতেছে সেটা আউটপুট ভ্যাট থেকে সেটা রিফান্ড করতে পারবে।
Right. So the company has imported this, for example, as service or software. At the import level, what the company has done, the company has to clear the VAT. But what he can do, he can realize the tax what he paid from the service recipient. For example, the service recipient and importer are different. For example, you see, for example, company A will import software through internet as service. So it has imported this software. At the time of payment through banking channel, company will pay VAT, and the same time he can adjust it against output tax. So when it is possible to collect the output tax? Only when the company A is selling this software to someone who is company B. Otherwise, is
Yes,
it
sir.
available output tax? Have you got it?
স্যার আবার একটু স্যার যদি বলতেন।
The thing is that when we are importing something, for example, company A is importing something. So company A is importing a software. So when company A is importing this software, at import level, when he is clearing his import, he will be supposed to clear the VAT, okay, which
Yes,
is
sir.
applicable. But you see this part, at the time of payment through banking channel, company will pay the VAT. He has already paid it. But at the same time, when what he can do, he can adjust it against output tax. So when output tax can be collected, if he sells the software to some other company.
Yes, sir.
So that is the learning of reverse charge. But the thing is that it has been mentioned that when the rate is either zero rated or 0% or 15%, then the imported service will be treated as 0% or 15%. The imported service will be, sorry, will not be treated as so it actually means that the point what we have learned here, this one, he can adjust it against output tax. That is the meaning here, that this adjustment is only available when the rate is 7.5%.
5%.
Okay. Now the thing is that some not registered importing on that good, the VAT is applicable. For example, let me give you an example from okay. For example, if you want to take service from caterer, are you familiar with the caterer? Is the spelling correct? Who provides the catering service? You are there with me?
Yes, sir.
Is spelling is correct or incorrect? The
Sir,
people
I
who
think
provide catering service.
yes, sir. Sir, ঠিক আছে স্যার মানে স্পেলিং।
Is it right? Okay. Now, for example, say to caterer, you have taken you have taken meal for 700 people. You have taken meal for 700 people, and you also have hired a convention hall. And the number of guests to be present in the convention hall is 700. So based on these facts, a specific VAT amount has to be paid. A specific VAT amount has to be paid. So when you go for taking the rent from convention hall manager will call you or will tell you that there is a tax challan number and you have to pay the VAT by yourself to the NVR account. So here the person who is paying the VAT, he does not have the registration, but he is paying the VAT. He is paying the VAT. So in some cases, in case of imported service, usually VAT at source is not applied when the person who is doing the transaction or the person who is buying the goods has a VAT registration number. But if the person does not have the VAT registration number, that person might have to pay VAT at source. But the point to be noted that usually this VAT at source is not applied to whom? To the person who has the VAT registration number.
Yes.
Okay. So when the VAT at source is applied, for example, you are an importer, you do not have the VAT registration number. Usually it is not possible. It is not common that you do not have the VAT registration number and you are importer. So if it is such case, in that case, you will have to pay through a challan, what I just have mentioned, through a challan. You have to pay the VAT through treasury challan to the government exchequer on behalf of the importer. Okay. So can you recall I mentioned the zero rated goods in previous class and also in today's class?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me show you the concept from the NBR site, what have been included in the zero rated supply. Supply of immovable is located outside Bangladesh. Supply of goods in order to export. Supply of service rendered outside Bangladesh. I do not have the example for this one right now. Supply of immovable properties located outside Bangladesh. But what I can give you the example that for this one, supply of goods in order to export. For example, some goods have been imported in Bangladesh where some modifications will be done and it will again be exported. It is not for the use within Bangladesh. It is not for the use within Bangladesh. So can we identify those goods as kind of temporarily imported goods? Do we have example for these goods? We are importing some goods and we are doing just modification, and we will not use these goods here. We will export these goods to be used by other countries. Do we have this kind of goods?
Yes, sir, we have. But
In EPZ?
yes, sir, yes.
So those goods are considered in the category of zero rated goods. And we have also example for service. So sometimes some companies provide services only to the international transport. For example, we have in our airport, a good number of international airlines operate their flights. So if they take catering service from our local suppliers, and local suppliers only supply those their food items only to those airlines, international airlines, which are under the category of international transport, and the services specifically rendered to them. In that case, it has been right now included in the zero rated goods. But remember, zero rated goods is not all time will be under the zero rated goods. For some point of time, it has been made zero rated, but sometimes government may feel that this rate will not, for this good, for example, the service I just have mentioned, the rate will not be zero, the VAT rate will be 15% will be applicable. So it can be here. But when the good has been included in the list of value exempt, in that case, we have to consider that it should, or it will continue for a significant number of years, okay, for some reason. So now we will try to see some calculation, how VAT will be calculated, when on which value VAT will be calculated. So before that, let me just give you some example of the products on which VAT is exempted. So we are heavily dependent on export or import.
Sir, export.
We are heavily dependent on export or import. Okay, you are saying export. Okay. So we are heavily dependent on export for remittance purpose. For remittance purpose, one of the good source of one of the very significant source of remittance is export revenue. But if the question is between export and import, which one is dominant in Bangladesh? What is the answer?
স্যার এক্ষেত্রে স্যার মনে হয় স্যার ইম্পোর্ট হবে, যেহেতু মানুষের এখানে মানে আমাদের মানে আমরা কনসাম্পশন বেশি হচ্ছে আমাদের এখানে।
Okay, is there any approximate figure for export and import of Bangladesh? How much export we do annually, how much import we do annually? I'm giving you 1 minute to think of and give me the approximate answer. I'm not asking for the exact answer. But we need to know the exact answer as a business undergrad. Do we have the figure?
স্যার 2019 সালে 46.4 বিলিয়ন এক্সপোর্ট হয়েছিল আর 64.9 বিলিয়ন ইম্পোর্ট হয়েছিল।
Dollar or taka?
ডলার ডলার
Okay, that's good. 64 import, and for export it is
46.4
sorry. For it is for
46.4
import.
no sir for import it is 46.4
For import it is 46.4.
sorry sir I made a mistake sir import হবে 64.9 আর export হবে 46.4
Is my arrow correct? Is
yes
my
sir yes sir
direction
yes
of
sir
arrow correct?
yes sir this arrow is
Okay.
correct
Okay. So our import VAT is imposed on the import, and our export are good example for VAT exempt goods. So the goods which are exported from Bangladesh, those goods are VAT exempt in general, and in the first schedule of the VAT and Supplementary Duty Act 2012, you will see a list of items. First schedule is available there in the VAT and SD Act, and the import duty, VAT is exempted on those goods. So all imports are not VAT exempted, but a good number of items are on the first schedule of the VAT and SD Act, on which VAT is not applicable, or VAT is not VAT has not been imposed. Okay, so let's review some calculation for VAT. So in today we'll finish our session looking at the how VAT will be calculated on imported goods. So you know very well that though the VAT is imposed on the imported goods are commonly charged for customs duty. Customs duty. So when a goods is imported from outside of the country, usually customs duty is applied, and only the goods on which customs duty is applicable, obviously. So in addition to customs duty, there are other goods, other duties can be applied, which can be regulatory duty, and one duty which is also common in the local goods, which is supplementary duty. Usually supplementary duty is applied on the luxurious type of goods and services, and there can be other duties. In addition to that, some other taxes are applicable, which are known as advance tax, also advance income tax. So the question is, how can we get the calculation for VAT? So the answer is, the calculation of VAT will be applied after considering all these duties on the invoice price of the import, or for understanding the LC price of the import. So the goods at which you have received at the port, then from the clearance from the port you have been charged these duties. Okay, so the thing is that how can we get the assessable value for the VAT? On which value will apply the VAT? So for example, we have imported a goods on which assessable value, for example, it is 50,000, and on that good customs duty has been applied. So say customs duty is 25%. So in that case, how much we have to add for customs duty here? If it is assessable value, then for customs duty, how much value I have to add for 25%?
12,500
12,500.
and 500.
So that on that good, regulatory duty of 10% has been imposed also. So it is not on the total, rather it is only on the assessable value of 50,000. So on 50,000, 10% regulatory duty will be 5,000, right?
Yes, sir.
And if supplementary duty is said, it is 20%. Supplementary duty is 20%. In that case, usually supplementary duty is not applied on the base value. It's not applied on this assessable value. Rather, it will be applied on the value including customs duty and regulatory duty. So how much we have got in so far? 67,500, right? So if the supplementary duty is 20%, it is not applied here, rather it will be applied on this. Have you got the learning? Supplementary duty will be applied on the goods value including customs duty and the regulatory duty. Now on the 67,500, if we add 20%, how much should be added? How much should be added?
13,500.
Okay. It is 13,500. Okay. Now how much? We have got 81,000. Is it 81,000?
Yes, sir.
Now the learning is VAT will be applicable on this value. If there is any advance tax, there is any advance income tax that will come later after calculation of VAT. Now, if I apply 15% on 81,000, how much should be added? 12,150. What is the rate? At the rate of 15%. On which value? 81,000. 81,000 is the value after summing up all this. Now, if there is any advance tax or any advance income taxes applicable, on which value it will be imposed?
স্যার ভ্যাট যোগ করার পর যে অ্যামাউন্ট আসবে অর্থাৎ হচ্ছে গিয়ে
Right.
মানে
Sorry, it will be considered. Please correct it. We have calculated VAT here, okay?
yes sir.
But the learning is VAT will be calculated only by consideration of, or only by after summing up the customs duty, regulatory duty, supplementary duty with the assessable value.
Yes sir.
And if there is other tax which will be applicable, that will be applicable after consideration of VAT. Now, if there is advance tax, that will be based on the 81,000, not on the value including VAT. So VAT has been applied on which value? 81,000.
81,000.
And if we ask on which value advance tax will be applied, the answer is same. It will also be applied on the 81,000. Okay. So the learning is when we will be calculating VAT, which will be included in the base value, assessable value, customs duty, regulatory duty, and supplementary duty. There should not be no advance tax. There should not be no advance income tax. If any other duties are applicable, that should also be included here. We have given example of how many duties: customs duty, regulatory duty, on supplementary duty. Have we got it?
Yes sir.
Okay. Now,
স্যার আই
yeah,
স্যার একটা কোশ্চেন ছিল স্যার। স্যার সাপ্লিমেন্টারি ডিউটি কি সবার পরে আসবে জানেন স্যার? মানে অন্যান্য গুলো ই করার পর অ্যাডজাস্ট করার পর সাপ্লিমেন্টারি মানে যেটা আসবে যে অ্যামাউন্টটা যোগ করে আসবে সেটার উপর সাপ্লিমেন্টারি ডিউটি চার্জ করা হবে জানেন স্যার?
yeah,
ওকে স্যার,
Yeah.
থ্যাংক ইউ।
okay. So in case of goods, I just have mentioned before that there are some goods which are re-imported, which have been imported here for the purpose of what? For the purpose of export. For the purpose of export, we have re-imported some goods. So in that case, on the value of import, we'll have to add the value of additional processing what we have done in within our country. So for example, a good has been imported in our country 100, and say 50 taka has been added in our country. Okay. So in that case, 50 taka has been incurred for what? 50 taka has been incurred for some expenses, say for freight, for landing charge, these things. In that case, the VAT will be applicable for which the 100 taka good has been enhanced to 150. How the 100 taka good has been 150? By adding this.
Yes sir.
So VAT will be applicable on this. So in this way, the VAT is applied in case of imported goods. And in next session, we will try to see that on general kind of goods or general supplies in our country, how can we apply the VAT calculation. So that is all about for today. Now, if you have any follow-up question or any other question, you can share with us or me. We have only 24 participants remaining.
Yes, sir.
That is
Sir,
very poor
would you?
number. Yeah,
Hello.
I'm listening.
Sir, would you please give a brief explanation on our topics regarding the previous session?
Which one?
Sir, what is that set off and carry forward of losses treatment during the tax holiday period?
During the tax holiday period.
Yes, sir.
I mean, in tax holiday period, whether set off and carry forward of loss will be applicable or not. Is this kind of question?
Sir, as far as I have learned that setup and carry forward is totally not applicable during the
Right.
tax holiday, but you have given an example in that case, but I didn't understand that example.
Okay. Would you please mention that example so that I can recall my mind?
Yes, sir. You have told that suppose a company its tax holiday period is 3 years. In the last tax holiday period, the company loses some amount. Uh, yes, this amount is applicable on that setup and carry forward of losses.
I didn't get it fully. Did you get the similar kind of example in your text?
Sir, I have go through the only recording.
Okay. Let me check the rules. Where the assessee sustains a loss from a tax holiday undertaking, it shall be carried forward and set off against the profits and gains of the said undertaking for the following year, and where it cannot be wholly set off, the amount of the loss not so set off shall be carried forward for the next year and so on, but no loss shall be carried forward beyond the tax holiday period specified by the board in the order issued under section. Okay. So when you are in a tax holiday period, if you incur loss, you have to carry forward the loss within the year for which tax holiday is applicable. So if the loss cannot be set off within that tax holiday period, in that case, it cannot be carried forward further. Am I clear to you now?
Sir, this point is confusing. This point is really confusing because you have mentioned the tax holiday period. During the tax holiday period, setup and carry forward is not applicable.
In set, it is the carry forward case. It is the carry forward case. The issue is when the company is in the tax holiday period, if the company sustains loss or if the company incurs loss, it can be carried forward. It can be carried forward if the loss cannot be set off properly. But if within the tax holiday period, we do not have the enough profit to set off the loss, and if we see profit only in the year when we do not have the tax holiday period, in that case we cannot carry the loss forward. For example, you are watching my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's say 2018 to 2021 is the tax holiday period for the company. Okay, so the company has incurred loss, for example, in the 2018. So up to 2020, there was no sufficient profit against which this loss would be applicable, right?
Yes, sir.
For example, in that case, this year's loss, which cannot be set off still by 2021, it cannot be carried forward after 2021 when there is no tax holiday period. Is it clear? Then I will proceed again.
Yes, sir. It's clear.
Okay. Now you see, in tax holiday period, what is the issue? In tax holiday period, the economic activity is any economic undertaking is exempt from paying tax.
Yeah.
Okay. So in that case, though you are not able to set off the loss, you are not able to set off the loss because if you do not have the profit in enough profit, you cannot make the set off of this. Though you are carry forwarding, but what you cannot set off properly. Why? For example, the loss is 500, but the after adjusting for 19, 20, these 2 years, you still have, for example, 200 loss. But in 2021, you have 100 profit. So is it possible to carry forward the set of the carry this 2018 loss in the 2021 and set off fully? How
No,
much
sir.
loss we can set off? We can
It's
set off
not
only,
possible. We can set up only 100.
we can set off only 100. How much is remaining?
100.
This 100 which is remaining cannot be taken forward again because your tax holiday period is expired. And the issue is that in tax holiday period, you are not liable to pay taxes. You are exempted from paying taxes. So usually it is not advisable, or it is it is confusing in a sense. So when the what is the reason of getting the set off and carry forward of loss? To reduce the tax burden?
Yes, sir.
For taking the advantage from loss, tax advantage for loss. But you see,
Yes.
in the year or when the tax holiday is applicable, you are not supposed to pay any taxes. So it is not advisable also from the government that if you incur loss here, when you are not supposed to pay you do not have the tax burden, this loss should not be used as advantage for the year in which tax is applicable, right? It should be, because in this year you are totally exempted from paying tax, right? Have you got it?
Yes, sir. I have got.
So that's why I have mentioned that set off and carry forward of loss, though it is calculated in this way, but I do not find the reason when the tax is not applicable in the tax holiday period, what is the purpose of setting, what is the purpose of carry forwarding of the loss in this tax holiday period? That is the issue. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there any
Yes.
question from you?
Yes, and now it's clear to me. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So the thing is that if there is any loss, we can carry forward the loss, or we can take the advantage if there is any within the tax holiday period only. We cannot go beyond the tax holiday period for the loss which has been incurred during the tax holiday period. Okay. So usually loss incurred by business is during their inception, and also tax holiday period is not like that. The business has started in 2021, and it is not like the tax holiday period will be applicable during the period 23 to 2024. It is not such case. Usual tax holiday period starts from, it's not company specific.
Beginning
It
of
is,
the company.
yeah, it is specific. It is general. It is, for example, right now Miroshorai EPZ is under development, so this is going to be started soon. So that will provide companies advantage of tax holiday period for sure. So for example, they have given the advantage that if you set up business in during this period, you will be exempted from tax. Or it may be such that from the establishment of your business for next 5 years, you will be exempted from paying taxes. So it can be any way. Okay. So
Okay,
that is
sir.
all about. May I leave the session? If you do not have any further question. Okay, so we'll be meeting on 20th March at 2:30 p.m.
Okay, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.